Outside the Forecast on WTHR Plus is sponsored by LCS Heating and Cooling.
Well, this week marks the 20th anniversary of one of the costliest, deadliest, and most destructive natural disasters our nation has felt. And we're talking about Hurricane Katrina. You're looking at scenes from around New Orleans of the catastrophic flooding that occurred due to the numerous levee failures in that city that produced this catastrophic flooding that in some cases was up to 15 feet. And the many residents that did not have the means to evacuate that were left behind in what can only be described as hell on earth had to wade this out. And it became one of the biggest rescue missions in our nation's history here. We're going to dive into the numbers here on Outside the Forecast as we look back at this hurricane that obviously the name's been retired. In terms of damage, it tops the list. Adjusted damage numbers over $200 billion, putting it above Hurricane Harvey and Ian and Maria and Sandy, Ida and Helene here. We're going to get into the meteorology, and we're going to take you back as well to our cruise being down there 20 years ago. Started as a tropical wave coming off of Africa around the 11th of August, became a tropical depression, and then eventually in the Bahamas became a named storm. Katrina made technically 3 landfalls, the first of which was near Miami-Dade as a Category 1 hurricane. Went across the southern peninsula with little fanfare, gets out into the Gulf of Mexico, which was super warm that particular year, and underwent rapid intensification on approach to New Orleans as the track shifted west and became the worst fear as we got into the morning of the 29th of August. At its peak intensity, 175 mile per hour wind, rainfall nearly 17 inches, its maximum surge nearly 28 feet. And that surge was catastrophic, and we will dive into that. And there's the fatality count that unfortunately was over 1,800. It did weaken slightly before making landfall officially just after 7 a.m. the morning of the 29th, but weakening from a Category 5 was still a major hurricane. And based on the approach here, and as we show you the radar data, and we talked about the worst fears from experts for decades that were worried about a hurricane of this stature causing the catastrophic flooding that we had in the city of New Orleans. But what was also catastrophic was the storm surge that was maximized on the eastern side of the eye track. And you can see in relation to New Orleans, which got into that western eye wall, very intense rain, and that was blanketing a good portion of Louisiana and the southwestern corner of Mississippi here. We'll dive in, we'll show you a snapshot as the eye was crossing over the southern portion of Louisiana just a little bit after 7 a.m. These are very intense bands around the eye. And on that eastern side, it was hours upon hours of surge that was coming in here along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We're talking about from Waveland and Gulfport, Pascagoula, past Christian, Dauphin Island, Mobile Bay. That was the maximum storm surge zone. Channel 13, as mentioned, sent multiple crews to cover the aftermath. And 2 of those folks still work here, Scott Swan and videographer Scott Allen. They caught up with someone that was in the storm surge zone that thankfully survived.
This is day 4 of the search for Indiana Task Force 1. They continue to go house to house here in Biloxi looking for victims of Hurricane Katrina. And today, ironically, they found a man who used to live in Indiana who rode out this storm.
We were expecting a little water, but we weren't expecting water above our heads or up to the top of the steps.
The damage is extensive.
Thank you, Lord.
The Bible, one of the few things salvaged after Katrina. Former Elkhart resident William Nix is lucky to be alive. William Nix decided to ride it out in a home that's 25 feet above sea level and only about 300 yards away from the Gulf of Mexico. He said the water was ferocious. William said he actually held the front door against the rushing water until it came up to his neck. William scrambled up the stairs, the water rising to this stair, and he and his boss actually rode it out up here on the second level. The Indiana Task Force 1 squad noticed William during their daily search for victims.
Finally, somebody showed up. This is the first time anybody's been down this comfort place in 3 days. We haven't seen anybody. This particular street right here, we haven't seen diddly squat. She lost her apartment too.
The damage isn't just confined to inside this home. This is what's left of the neighbor's property.
You couldn't see the ocean from here unless you were upstairs. Now we have a beautiful view of the ocean. We have oceanfront property.
How does a tornado in Indiana compare with a hurricane here in Biloxi?
There's no comparison. You see the damage, and it's from here, from Mobile all the way to New Orleans.
It's unknown how long the K-9 units and the rest of Indiana Task Force 1 will be here searching. In Biloxi, Mississippi, Scott Swan, Channel 13, Eyewitness News.
So the storm surge in itself would have made this a history-making storm, but obviously we had the catastrophic flooding component as well. At one point, 80% of the city of New Orleans was flooded, and in some places under 15 feet of water. 1 million people were displaced. Now, some of those, in fact, a lot of those came back, but a lot of folks did not. There was at one point 600,000 households that were displaced a month after the storm. On the 5-year anniversary of Katrina, Jenny Runovich caught up with a New Orleans resident that fled the storm, never came back, and transplanted here to Indianapolis.
For Anthony Smith, it's an anniversary met with mixed emotions when his life along the Gulf ended and another began in Indiana.
5 years, it's been 5 years, hard to believe.
5 years ago, Smith left his native New Orleans, forced out by Hurricane Katrina.
The day before the storm hit, it was like a day like this, blue sky, nice outside, and that's why I didn't go anywhere. I figured nothing would happen, you know.
As we all know now, he figured wrong. By daylight, 3 feet of water filled his home, and it was rising.
I had trouble getting out after that, where the water came up so quickly.
Smith spent 5 days in the loft of his damaged home waiting to be rescued by boat. From there, he got a ride to the airport and decided it was time to go.
If anybody wants to go there in Indianapolis, get in this line over here. And that's the line I got in.
Smith says he knew nothing about Indianapolis, but after landing, quickly discovered Hoosier hospitality.
The people were so nice when I got here, you know, and they took care of me.
Especially Lori Burtz, a Red Cross volunteer who met Smith at a shelter at the fairgrounds.
It's like two strangers comes together and a friendship grew out of it. He's been a wonderful, not only just a friend, but a brother as well.
Lori invited him to church, helped him through heart surgery, even took him into her home to heal. It's one of the reasons Smith calls Indianapolis his permanent home. Although he visits family in New Orleans, he doesn't want to move back.
You know, because things aren't really up to par down there still after 5 years.
Smith says he's a survivor who left by necessity and stayed by choice, now proud to be a Hoosier. Jenny Runovich, Channel 13 Eyewitness News.
Well, we appreciate you tuning in here on Outside the Forecast as we look back at the impacts of Hurricane Katrina. Though 20 years have passed, these scenes and the memories are certainly very fresh for all of us here, Channel 13 and across the U.S.
Outside the Forecast on WTHR Plus is sponsored by LCS Heating and Cooling.